Hello, everyone's Forest Focus as Nottingham Forest added a third New Zealand international to their squad in Tyler Bindon after his arrival from Reading on transfer deadline day. Let's be honest, we don't know too much about the 20-year-old central defender. So joining me to tell us a little bit more is Sky Sports New Zealand commentator and talk radio host Jason Pine. Jason, good to have you back with us. How are you doing?
Yeah, great, Matt. It's great to have you hoovering up all of these Kiwi players. It's high excitement here in New Zealand with Tyler Bindon joining Chris Wood, obviously, and Marco Stamanic, who's out on loan. You're getting a good player, and no doubt we can talk a bit more about his qualities.
Look forward to it. People will remember Jason was on in the summer talking about Marco Stamanic, who you mentioned there, who's gone to Olympiacos. Told us some lovely stuff about him. So looking forward to hearing a bit more about Tyler. Just for some context for people, as I say, he's 20 years old, central defender. He's played an absolute ton of minutes this season. He's played every minute for Reading by about 15. So he's got a lot of minutes under his belt. He's signed a contract with us until 2028, and he's gone back on loan to Reading for the rest of the season. When I guess he goes on loan to a championship club next season. Perhaps we'll come to that. Do you know too much about his background? It sounds quite interesting. He grew up in New Zealand and then moved to the States at quite a young age. Is that right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, so he comes from good stock. His mum, Jenny, was a goalkeeper for our women's team, played over 70 internationals for New Zealand, and Father Grant is a national volleyball captain. So he's certainly got the genes for it. They moved to the United States when Tyler was 12 because Jenny, who had moved from playing to coaching, had a coaching opportunity there. So they lived in the United States from the time Tyler was 12. And he actually played for the US under-19 team, and they were very keen to develop him as a future international. He spent time at Los Angeles FC, the MLS club, for 4 or 5 years in their academy system, and then was picked up by Reading a couple of years ago, Matt. And as you say, has been practically ever present ever since. So yeah, he hasn't spent a heck of a lot of time in New Zealand due to mainly footballing reasons. But the interesting part about his choice of New Zealand over the United States in terms of his international allegiance was that he always said that New Zealand felt like home to him. And I think that's largely down to the way his parents have brought him up. They've always established a deep connection back to New Zealand with Tyler. So yeah, that's the snapshot of how he came to be a player for Nottingham Forest through the US and Reading, as you say, where he'll go back on loan. And and we can talk a bit about his qualities, but that's the background to how he got to where he is right now.
Just I did the old thing of watching highlights of him, and you can see what he's about, and I'll ask you more about that. But reading comments from Reading fans, and you sent me a nice DM on Twitter with talking a little bit about him. I mean, they're gutted he's gone, but delighted for him in a sense. You seem very excited. Just how highly do you rate him before we get into the specifics of his game?
Yeah, hugely. We're going through a bit of a period here in New Zealand at the moment where a number of young players are starting to really make waves for us. Marco Stamanic, as you say, I waxed lyrical about him last time we spoke, and I still believe he can go to the very top with Forest. I believe he's a Premier League player in waiting once he gets some more experience at Olympiacos and back at Forest. Tyler Bindon, without wanting to put too much pressure on a kid who has just turned 20, he has all the qualities required to be a top player. And look, it isn't just me who thinks it. You're right, Matt. You just look at the fans of Reading. There is not. I've looked at some fan forums and online, and there's not a single Reading fan who has anything other than the highest of praise for him. And perhaps our one of our greatest footballers, Ryan Nelson, who you might remember from his time with Blackburn Rovers and latterly Tottenham, was a lion-hearted captain of our national side. In recent times on another podcast said that he believes Tyler Bindon can be the best player ever to play for New Zealand. Now, that's a huge rap. That's a massive rap. Yeah, Chris Wood wants a word. But that is a huge rap from Ryan Nelson, who, is a legend in these parts. So that's the ceiling we're talking about here. A player who, he could go to 3 or 4 World Cups with New Zealand. That's just at an international level. And I believe it's a massively high ceiling that he has at club level.
The thing I like about him is, I think you said to me, he's played the most minutes of any 20-year-old and under player in senior world football. in the last year, and that certainly bodes well, doesn't it?
Oh, I think his consistency, yes. The fact that he's captained Reading as a teenager, yes, it was an FA Cup match, but it's still a match. He's captained, the senior side as a teenager. This is it's not necessarily unheard of, but it's pretty rare. And so it also speaks to his ability to stay in form, to not pick up injuries, to stay disciplined and not be, suspended or whatever it is for red or yellow cards. He just seems to have so much about him. A lot of it, Matt, has happened away from here. So we're a bit like you. We sort of, League One isn't something we watch a lot of over here in New Zealand. It tends to be the Premier League and a little bit of the Championship. But yeah, you can Google or find Reading games online, and every time you do, Tyler Bindon is doing something that impresses people. And look, Nottingham Forest have got a good scouting system, as you know, and they've been tracking his progress for a while. A lot of other clubs were in for him. But yeah, delighted that he's turning up at Nottingham Forest.
So do you think Chris would put a word in, or would you have been on our radar anyway, do you think?
I think there's almost guaranteed that Chris Wood was probably asked for his opinion. I mean, if you're the Nottingham Forest scouts and you're scouting a New Zealander, you go to your New Zealander, don't you? And I know how highly regarded Chris Wood is at Nottingham Forest these days. The two of them have been together in the national side. Chris would have had the opportunity to work alongside Tyler, play with him for the national team, and the other thing that you read a lot about Tyler Bindon when you do a bit of background on him is how instantly he makes an impact on people. When he was trialling with Reading, a couple of the coaches who were in charge of him went into the boss's office the day after the first training session and said, "Look, if you don't sign this kid, then I'm not even sure why I'm here." That's the impression that he makes. See, I'm sure they said to Chris Wood, "Hey, what's this kid like? Any skeletons in this closet? Anything we need to know?" He would, I'm sure, given him a glowing review, and that I'm sure would have just been another layer of confidence in making this signing.
I don't know if you've spoken to him when he's on international duty or anything like that, but do you know anything about his character? Because it's a very tight-knit dressing room. He's not in it yet, but like we hope he will be in 2 years. Forest like good characters, like all clubs. Is he a good bloke from what you know?
Yeah, lovely kid. Kiwis, we tend to be, as you know, Matt, we tend to be fairly laid back and understated. You only have to watch Chris Wood's media interviews, and I can't remember the last time he talked about himself. Actually, it's always deflecting to his teammates. Tyler Bindon's very much the same. He's a quality human being. I have had the opportunity to chat with him during his time in the national side. Just the kind of guy you immediately get a good vibe from. A high quality person. His parents, as I say, were both high achievers. Jenny Bindon actually has just been appointed assistant coach of the New Zealand national women's team. So she's continuing her coaching journey. Grant's a good, solid man as well. Tyler's an only child, but he is he's just a top quality bloke, really.
Just before we come on to his strengths and weaknesses as a player, I'm going to shoehorn 2 adverts into one, which I don't normally do, but this is a condensed podcast for reasons I'll explain at the end. So first, the Trent navigation, as ever. ABBA Fever is one of lots of events coming up the 20th of April this year, 7 p.m. till 10:30 p.m. Search gigantic.com for tickets to get all the details of that one. There is lots of stuff coming up, and I've got the details of those in the next few days. And also, we normally sponsored on a Wednesday as well by... That's the wrong one. There it is. Sorry, because we've got an estate agent sponsor as well. We've also got a Best of Lines Windows sponsor. So if you're looking for bespoke windows or shutters, do check them out. I don't think they ship to New Zealand, I'm afraid, but do check them out. If you're a bit closer to home, they're the people for you. Link is in the description. And thanks to those guys for their sponsorship and backing as ever. Right. Strengths and weaknesses as a player. He's got sort of a John Stones rep in terms of being a ball-playing defender. Is that about right? Is that his style, would you say?
Yes, indeed. That's a good comparison. Obviously, he's got a way to go to get close to what John Stones has achieved for club and country. But yeah, that's a pretty good comparison. 2-footed, quick, very quick. As most centre-backs are, he's strong in the air. But yeah, it has become almost compulsory now, Matt, hasn't it, that a centre-back has to be comfortable with the ball at his feet. New Zealand like to play out from the back. Reading do, Forest do, everybody does really. You can't just be, a big, strong stopper anymore who just gets rid of the ball. You have to be able to play with it. So yeah, he's got that, and just, which is rare for a younger player, very composed as well. Doesn't seem to panic in situations where where there might be a bit of danger in front of goal. He just seems very composed. And the other thing you read a lot about Tyler Bindon is how inquisitive he is. He's clearly been one of the best players of his age growing up, but always keen to learn more, to understand, why certain things are being done within a football framework, where he should be in certain situations. Very keen to learn. A lot of his coaches have made that point. Even in the national team, we're really, over the years ahead, he's going to be coming into this national team as one of the better players. But everything you hear from the national team at the moment is that he's just very, very keen to be part of the team and to find out more about what it takes to be a top quality footballer. So yeah, a lot of raw materials there that will be honed at Forest, and yeah, you just wonder what his ceiling might be. Go back to that comment from Ryan Nelson keeps resonating with me. He could be our best ever player. We're not a footballing superpower, as you know, Matt, but you look at a guy like Chris Wood and Ryan Nelson himself and Winton Rufer previously. There's some top players, and if Tyler's on that path, then I can't wait to see where it takes him.
Yeah, 13 caps so far and counting by the sound of it, I'm sure. Aside from the fact he hasn't been tested at Premier League level, is there any aspects of his game that you think he needs to work on from what you've seen of him?
I think that's the main one is more minutes. Although, as you said before, he's getting plenty of those. He's clocked up, plenty of minutes as an under 20 player. So he's already banked a lot of experience. Yes, it's only League One, but it's still a very competitive league, particularly with when you're a centre back and you've got those big ugly centre forwards with their elbows out and tricky wingers and others who want to try and make you look a little bit foolish. But that's the only thing really is his lack of experience at the very top level. As you say, Matt, I get the feeling he'll go out on loan next year to the Championship. He'll obviously start Reading for the remainder of this season, come into Nottingham Forest, and then probably go out on loan, but contract through to 2028. So you'd expect by the end of last couple of years of that contract that he'd be in and about the first team at Forest. It's really just finding a way to get more minutes to continue his football education. As far as a player is concerned, a centre back, he seems to, as I said before, have all the raw materials. Just honing those now and seeing where it might take him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've got Murillo. I don't know if we'll have him in 2028. Well, hopefully we will. We've got Milenkovic. We've got Morato. We've got David Carmo, who's at Olympiacos. We've got Willy Bolly, although he'll be retired by then. But the point is, we've got a lot of good centre backs. So there is a lot of barriers in his way. Are you convinced that he'll make it to the Premier League, even if it's not with Forest, and say we sell him for a nice profit? You think he'll make it there either with us or with someone else in the end then?
Yeah, I do. I fully believe that he will. From what I've seen, from what I've read, from the opinions of others, I fully believe that he will make it as a Premier League player. I hope it's with Forest. We're just absolutely loving what Chris Wood is doing for you guys at the moment, Matt. We're gaining a whole new legion of fans over this side of the world with what Chris is doing right now. We'd love to see Marko Stamenic come back and start to integrate himself, and if Tyler Bindon can go the same way. Chris Wood's got another 2 years beyond this one on his contract now. We just absolutely love to see all three of them feature for Forest, even together. That would be just unbelievable from our side of the world, where we've had very few Premier League players. To have three at the same club, in a club that's capturing the imagination of everybody around the world at the moment, would be amazing. So it's a very long-winded way of saying yes, I believe Tyler Bindon can make it in the Premier League.
I was actually looking this morning at our listening demographics, just out of curiosity, and about 2.5–3% of our audio listeners are in New Zealand, and about 2% of our YouTube viewers, which doesn't sound a lot, but we do all right. So there must be a growing number. I know some of those are expats, but do you see Forest as one of the big Premier League clubs in New Zealand now, rivaling City, Arsenal, and all those teams then?
Yeah, I think what it is it's the story behind it, isn't it? I think, look, it's easy to jump if you're a young football fan. It's easy to jump on one of the big clubs and wear a Liverpool or a Man City or a Chelsea shirt to school or whatever it is. I haven't seen an absolute onrush of Forest shirts, Matt. I'll be honest with you, but look, it's at the moment it's the result we all look for on a Sunday morning. That's one of the first things I do on a Sunday morning is to check Forest's result. I don't think in the past I've ever watched a Forest game, in its entirety live, but I have this season. I've set the alarm to get up because Chris is playing. That's what we're talking about over here now. And those with only a passing interest in football, because as you know, New Zealand's a big rugby union country with the All Blacks. They're top of the pops over here. But even those with only a passing interest in football now are talking about Nottingham Forest here. They're a famous team from years gone by. As you know, the teams of the late 70s will always have a place in football folklore. But for the modern day team to be capturing the attention of people in New Zealand who don't normally follow football, I think that tells you all you need to know about the impact that they're having right around the world.
Last question before we let you go. Have you got any other New Zealand young kids who are going to make the grade that we should be watching and signing?
Well, like I said at the top of the chat, Matt, it's a pretty interesting time at the moment here in New Zealand. We've got our World Cup qualifiers coming up in March, our final 2 hurdles to this expanded World Cup. Oceania gets direct entry, of course. So a couple of games and hopefully, fingers crossed, no banana skins there and New Zealand make the World Cup. Darren Baisley, our national men's head coach, is in the situation now where he has more good players than he can fit into his squad, which might not sound like much, but from a New Zealand point of view, over the years, there's often been a situation where you're sort of scrambling around. I talked to Darren Baisley the other day. He's got a whiteboard in his office and it has 63 names on it, 63 names of players he's tracking from Chris Wood right at the top down through the likes of Tyler Bindon and others, through to players who are playing in far-flung places around the world or even here in New Zealand. There are that's 63 players on his radar and others as well coming through. So look, 2 or 3 years ago we hadn't heard of Tyler Bindon. 4 or 5 years ago we hadn't heard of Marko Stamenic. We've known about Chris Wood for a while. So look, who knows, Matt? Who knows who might come across your radar? I'll keep feeding information to you, mate. And if you could just pass that on to the powers that be, I know you've got great connections at the football club, and maybe we can get half a dozen there in the years ahead.
Let's do it. Let's take a 10% cut though when we do. Let's do that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. If you have enjoyed that, do us a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, do consider channel membership or Patreon, or just give us that lovely review, 5 stars on iTunes or Spotify. Got to leave it there because I've got to take my daughter to Girl Guys. My son is sat in the room. He's waving at me, so he's ready to go. Jason, thank you very much. Very much appreciate that.
Always enjoy chatting, Matt. Thanks so much indeed.
No problem. No problem. Have a good day, everyone. And if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.